What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Jackwitz. This is the Kaged Review, and this is a review for The Walking Dead, Season 9, Episode 15. And this is actually my second take. I did a review already, and I had rendered it, and I was about to post it, and I was like, you know what? I want to change it up, because it was honestly the most unenthusiastic review I've ever done for a show, period. I was just defeated by Season 9. So, I've seen some of the comments post episode 15. Everybody freaking out. It's like the Red Wedding. First and foremost, please don't compare this to the Red Wedding. That really disrespects one of the greatest moments in TV history. The Red Wedding had an amazing build-up, both in the conflict that was happening and in the build-up that you didn't see with the phrase. And then there was this amazing shock value after the wedding that they kill off, like, not just some main characters, but the main character, really. I mean, Robb Stark leading the war against the Lannisters. It was just bad. It was really bad. This show does not deserve to even be in the same conversation. So I'm going to start off, you start out with the hilltop, and really you start out with a couple. It's kind of like a flashback scene where you see this couple, they're surviving, and I forget exactly what the catchphrase was they said, but they're trying to survive in the wilderness, and then they see hilltop. And then you flash forward, you see the same couple saying the same catchphrase, whatever it was, at hilltop. And so they lead out with some goods with some other people from hilltop to the kingdom. They get cut off by Alpha and some Whisperers. Alpha takes this lady, cuts off her hair, and she's going to use that later in the show. And then you get the fair itself. Ezekiel, he's standing atop this building, and he's talking to everybody out there, and he's talking about how they're living out Rick and Carl's dream of, you know, seeing the communities gel together and kind of build society back up. So it was a really cool speech, and I did like that. And then from there, you get, you know, the introduction to the fair, and Daryl, Carol, Henry, and Lydia show up. Tara immediately doesn't like that and kind of starts a meeting with the higher-ups in each community. And, you know, they tell Tara, well, you know, at one point we wanted to kill you when we didn't know who you were, or we gave you a chance. And so Tara had to be like, you know, okay, that's valid. So they agree that they're going to start watching each other's backs. Each community is going to watch the other community's back, and they make this pact. And so Ezekiel pulls out this written, you know, like Declaration of Independence, so to speak, and they have all the community leaders sign it. Gabriel from Alexandria, Ezekiel, and Carol sign it from the Kingdom, somebody from Oceanside, Tara from Hilltop. And so now they have this understanding, everybody's coming together. And then Carol and Ezekiel, they go to Lydia and Henry, and they're like, you know what, what's done is done, you're here, don't leave, we'll protect you. And so after that, you get a clip with Enid talking to Allin, and they have done nothing with Enid. And later on in the show, you really get a feeling of how little they have done with Enid. And, I mean, her and Alden are now in a relationship. Okay. So then you get Connie and her brother, because Connie just got back too with Daryl, Carol, and Lydia, Henry. And, you know, her brother's upset that she left and didn't say goodbye, and he's, you know, kind of scolding her for what she did. And she said, look, there was a baby going to be left for walkers to get eaten by, and I wasn't going to just sit around and do nothing. That was a couple episodes back when one of the Whisperers, the baby was crying, and the walkers were, you know, walking toward her, so she just put the baby down and walked away. So Connie's brother says, I understand, and they kind of, you know, made up as far as that goes. Then you get Carol, Daryl, Michonne, Yumi, and a few others. They're all heading for Hilltop initially. They run into some of the highwaymen who are fighting these walkers, and they realize that part of the crew from Hilltop has been murdered. This is what you see at the beginning of the show. And so the crew kind of splits up, and the highwaymen kind of tell them what's happening, and they say they found the bodies. And so Carol, Daryl, Michonne, and Yumika decide to go one way, and the rest of the crew go another way. And Manga and Yumika have a little moment where they're talking as they're about to leave, and she's like, "Are we really leaving, Manga?" And Yumika's like, "Just for a little while," and then they kiss, and so apparently they're a couple. So it winds up that Carol, Daryl, Michonne, and Yumi get caught by the Whisperers. And this starts a little back and forth. Alpha, you get a flashback where she's in the kingdom. She's wearing the girl's hair that she had killed, and she's walking around the kingdom, and she's kind of taking it all in, the society as it is now. And after that, you get a real quick kind of spaced in section where Eugene is talking to Rosita, and Rosita is basically throwing out the white flag. They're trying to mend fences a little bit, and because there's been a lot of friction there. So it wasn't a big scene, but it looks like they're trying to get past things. Then you go back to Alpha. She's still in the kingdom. She meets Ezekiel, and she's talking about how she's from Alexandria. She knows Michonne, and Ezekiel obviously doesn't know her, doesn't know the story. So he's being really nice to her and walking around. And then you go from there, you see Alpha sneak into the well, doesn't really sneak in. I mean, she's kind of in disguise, and she just walks into the theater. And there's Lydia, and then so she sits down next to Lydia and kind of shushes her. And it gets a little disjointed here. You go back to the 4 people that are caught by the Whisperers, and Alpha walks Daryl up to this precipice where she looks down on a horde. And in the comics, this is Rick. In the comics, this is all Rick. And so they had to replace him with Daryl. Okay, not a problem. So Daryl looks down on the horde. She says, "I've set up a perimeter. You guys are not to cross that perimeter into our territory again." And so if you know the comics, you already know what's coming. And actually, you kind of already know what's coming because the show has been hinting at it all season, really. So Daryl asks her point blank, "What did you do with Lydia? Did you kill her?" And so there's a flashback to Alpha and Lydia. Alpha kind of singles Lydia later after the theater. They're kind of, it's nighttime, and she kind of gets her by herself. And Lydia says, "You know what? You've treated me like shit. You used to abuse the hell out of me. I'm done. I just want you to leave. All I have to do is scream and you're dead. I don't want to have to scream. I just want you to leave." And so that's what Alpha does. And so you get a clip after that where Beta tries to come up to Alpha, ask if she's okay. He says, "Lydia," and she says, "I want to be alone." She starts crying. Another Whisperer sees her crying. She calls him over, stabs him in the head because she can't show weakness. And so, there was this back and forth, kind of disjointed thing that they were doing with the episode. And you knew it was building up to something big. And really, this is what they've been building toward all season. And this is my point with this whole season. This whole season has been very disjointed. It has been very, very disjointed. The pacing has been terrible. I had been expecting, the build up for the conflict with Whisperers and the other communities. And they really haven't. I mean, they've done that a little bit, but most of the second half of the season has been flashbacks. And flashbacks at times that really, if you took them out, is the exact same story, just shorter. It really didn't add anything sometimes with these flashbacks. And all it did was stall the pacing. And so I've had a really big problem with that. And then you finally get to this penultimate moment. With the way the rest of this season has gone, you had better knock this out of the park. It better be a home run. And it wasn't. It was not even close, in my opinion. And I know there were a lot of people that were shocked, and they were like, "Oh my God," because they're not familiar with the comics and they don't know what's happening. But at the end of the day, for the majority of people, even people who don't read the comics, you kind of know what's coming. Even if you don't know specifically. And that might have a bigger impact for people who aren't familiar, but when you finally get to the moment, the Whisperers release Carol, Daryl, Michonne, and Yumi. So that's good. They release them. They're walking up the hill. They see Sadiq. He's really messed up. And then he's freaking out. He's pointing up the hill. They all walk up. You see the concern. Then you see the terror on their faces. And there's a bunch of head on spikes. Bunch of heads. It was honestly the moment I think could have been built up a lot better. I just do. Part of my issue with this being compared to the Red Wedding is because there was an instant shock. Oh my god. This you saw coming a mile away, and if you didn't, you just haven't been paying attention. But the problem is they chose a whole lot of nobody for the most part. There was one exception to this rule. So you look up, you see the heads, you have people in the kingdom, they're asking where, certain people are. And then you see their head on a spike. And the three major ones are Terra, which is, in my opinion, one of the least interesting characters in the series. You have Enid, who they have done nothing with for a long time. She survived forever in this series, but they've done nothing with her. So that wasn't really a moment. Like, they show her face, and I'm like, okay, well, Enid's dead. The big shock value was Henry. They killed Henry off. And, I'll be honest, it did get me. Like, when I saw Henry, that was a moment. They did a good job with creating the moment with Henry. And it was something that was unexpected because Henry was not one of the heads in the comics. Here's my problem with this. They killed a couple of the highwaymen, a couple of the younger people from Alexandria. Really people that had no impact on the series. Terra, who was not very interesting. Enid, who they've done nothing with. Like, the people they chose to knock out in this really did not have an impact. And so they had to figure one person to have an impact with, I guess. And that was Henry. And that was a piss poor choice, in my opinion, because the people who actually died in the comics, Luke, Rosita with her unborn baby, Ezekiel is one of the heads on those pikes. And that's why I'm like, dude, Ezekiel would have been a moment. Like the leader of the kingdom. Honestly, that would have been a moment that would have just lasted. And then they have to figure out what they're going to do with the kingdom after Ezekiel's dead. That opens up so many doors for what's going to happen next. And I think because they lost Rick at the, halfway point of the season, I think they were scared to take that jump with Ezekiel. I think they were scared to get rid of that character. And I think that was a bad choice. And going back to Game of Thrones type stuff, they're not afraid to kill off anybody at any given point because they know they're going to add more interesting characters, which is what The Walking Dead really has not done. They have not added characters interesting enough to care about. And so they're afraid of getting rid of all these mainstays of the earlier seasons. Killing off Carl was stupid. I don't care what the reason was. Killing Carl off was just dumb. It took so much away from what could have happened. So here we are, a very lackluster season in my opinion. I did not like the way they executed the fair. I felt like they killed the wrong people. I felt like the build-up was just really, really bad. And I know a lot of people were excited about this, and a lot of people, they feel like this is The Walking Dead getting back into form. I don't. I really, really don't. I feel like, they might have had a season where they fell off the map. But I think Angela Kang doesn't know a lot about pacing in a series. She doesn't know how to build the drama the way it needs to be built for a series like this. She doesn't understand the really good shock value. Like, they had shock value in this, and I'm not saying it was completely terrible. But, compare it to seasons like 1, 2, 3, 4, hell, even up to 6 and 7. They had some amazing shock moments And I just feel like it's fallen off the map completely. So I don't know that I'm going to say that I'm done with The Walking Dead after this season. I'm definitely going to finish out 16 to see how they close it out. Gone this far, one more episode, why not? If they start doing something with Negan where it's Negan versus the Whisperers, then, certainly that'll pique my interest again. But even Negan, they didn't do much with Jeffrey Dean Morgan this season. Like, not at all. And so that was really disappointing in itself. So, at the end of the day, I was really not happy with this. They close out the show with Sadiq. He gives a speech about how, he was sent back to send a message of fear and to, not want to trifle with the Whisperers. He sends a different message about how everybody fought together. They fought side by side. Everybody was a unit. And it showed how people can come together. And they died as heroes. And that's, I don't know, man. I mean, at the end of the day, it was decent. But I don't like the way they closed out this season. This is really the penultimate episode. And I think they just missed it all. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give this a 1 out of 10. I know it's pretty harsh, but after everything that you built up, like I said, you better hit a home run, and they did not. Not in my eyes, so that's where I'm at. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz, Kaged Nation, out.